Hi there. In a world where nothing is certain, that means anything is possible, right? If you want to fulfill your dreams and desires, you are in the right place. You absolutely can have a life of happiness. Everyone deserves an abundance of love, laughter, success, health, and wealth. I'm Tara Chadzakis, and you're listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. The show that brings you meditation, mindset, and motivation. So start by giving yourself permission to be awesome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to Happy, Inspired, Motivated. Today I am joined by JodieLynn Craven. Now, JodieLynn has been a financial advisor and a financial educator for well over a decade, and her expertise, knowledge, and experience have helped her create what she calls the Fluid Money Blueprint, and that is working on her clients' mindset and energy around money and not just the financial structure side. She prides herself in helping her clients with a step-by-step guide to learn how to consistently attract money, working on the energetics behind money blocks and how they show up in their business, what patterns are blocking their abundant flow. And in this interview, she goes into talking about why working more isn't necessarily going to result in you receiving more financial abundance and how that translates in your life. So let me introduce JodieLynn Craven to you. Hi, JodieLynn, and welcome to Happy, Inspired, Motivated. How are you doing today?
I'm so wonderful. It's bright and early in the morning where I'm from, and I get to watch the sunrise this morning. How special is that?
You certainly do. Is it still dark out there?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Well, we really appreciate you getting up extra early and coming to join us for this interview. So tell me a little bit about, so you are an abundance consciousness creator, basically around money. So you worked in financial advising beforehand. What made you switch to this kind of the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. I've been a financial advisor, still am financial broker for almost 11 years now. And I got into the industry because I really wanted to understand how money works, the third dimensional, behind the curtain, how does it all work and how do I get ahead? Because I'd made a lot of mistakes up to that point and I really wanted to understand. So I had this fire inside for really understanding the systems and how they operate and how to help people understand them. So that became my career. And a few years in, I started to notice certain patterns where I would go and see somebody and I would free them up $1,000 a month. And I would build them this beautiful plan on how they could get out of debt and how they could have more saved and how their life could be completely different in a year from now. And then I'd come back in a year from, that point after this amazing plan. I was so excited for them and they would be in a worse position. Oh, and this didn't happen once or twice. This happened over and over again. So I started to look at myself as well. What other patterns or things could I find that were relatable where I was stuck at a certain income milestone, or I would notice, my credit card go up and then, I'd pay it off and then just for it to rise to the exact same balance. So I was watching all of these patterns around me. I started to really lean into money mindset, law of attraction, all of these things, but I really felt I wasn't getting the answer. So I went within. And that's when I really started to channel abundance codes. Questions started to drop in. I started to see the philosophy behind money, the energy behind money. And it just became this passion project of mine of understanding how the mind, how the frequency, how everything ties in and how it's not just about this third dimensional, I save money, therefore I will have money. No, there's other things that are actually blocking you from receiving abundance and actually, hindering you from getting where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, money is just energy like other things. And when you talk about the mindset and things, it doesn't matter what amazing plans and strategy you have in place to make, an extra $1,000 a month. If your mindset's not there and it's still stuck at that certain level of income or savings, then it's really difficult to get through it. You really have to do the inner work as well as the planning and strategy as well. It's crazy. People don't understand that.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And I could see that our perception was driving everything. The individual's perception, my perception, it was creating everything within my world, which really got me excited, because if I created it, then I could create something new. And that it was just this curiosity that I had burning within of how does this actually work, the energy behind money, and then figuring it out and beginning to teach it. So that's kind of how I ended up here.
Tell me a little bit more about how you work with your clients and getting their energy to a certain level to attract money.
Yeah, great question. I have what I call the Fluid Money Blueprint. Mm-hmm. And this is what I teach in my signature course more. So the Fluid Money Blueprint has 3 different phases. So I walk my students through the first phase, which is unlock abundance blocks. So the first phase is really, how do you figure out what's blocking you? Mm-hmm. What I found is that most people stick to the conversation around money because it sounds obvious, right? I have a block around money, then I'm going to journal, or I'm going to, identify problems that I see with money.
Yeah.
But the thing with money is it's never about money. It goes so much deeper than that. So if you were to think about it as like a dam in between you, the water on the other side is all of the money, the abundance, everything that you desire. And then there's this dam or this wall that we've built between us and all of those things. So working just on the money beliefs. Oh, is money good? Or you have to work hard for money. Just staying on that level is like taking the bricks off the surface of that wall. We're really not getting anywhere. We're not seeing that momentum or that movement. We really got to go within. So asking yourself some good questions. And I have what I call the Unlock Abundance Blocks journal method, where I've channeled specific questions that result in a visceral response. So this is my gift. Okay. My gift is when other people talk about what's going on in their life, when they talk about money, I'm able to see their trauma or their pain points. I'm able to see what's actually blocking them. Visually, it kind of pops up as like a hot spot, or I feel a pull towards that word, or I see, an image or something like that. So what I did in this course was I actually sat down and took a billion sticky notes, or what felt like a billion sticky notes. And I figured out the questions that I would ask my students in private coaching on how to draw deeper on what's really bothering them around that scenario. And what I found is it's a couple different things. We attach meaning to money. When I have more money, it will mean I'm a good daughter, I'm a good wife, I'm a good husband, I'm a good member of society, that I'm worthy. And these are deep pain wounds that we need to see. And we need to start releasing the attachment that we have around them and what money means. Because money, it's just a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper that is literally backed by nothing except our government's promise that it's worth something and our belief as a society that it is.
That's putting a lot of pressure on money as well, isn't it? It's like, if money comes to you, it's like, well, you have all these expectations to fulfill. Otherwise, I'm not going to be good enough ever if you don't come to me and stay with me. And there's one is like, oh my goodness, I'm out of here.
Right. Exactly. So much pressure. Yeah. And then, so the second phase, so that what that does is really seeing how you perceive money, how you perceive yourself with money, and all of the blocks that are kind of have been hidden for a long time. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is dismantling these negative money perspectives that we've held on to for so long. So we get into this rut of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And when it comes to our unconscious, we don't even realize that we're doing it. So for me, I would get really anxious about the money that was coming into my bank account. And I would go to log into my bank account and I wouldn't even get to the actual screen that tells you how much money you have in your account. I would get to the login part. I would feel this visceral response happening. My heart would start pounding, my throat would start closing off. I would feel pressure in my chest, but I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all because I wasn't paying attention, because we've forgotten that our body, our brain, all of these things are interacting with our current experience and creating our current experience. So the second phase of the Fluid Money Blueprint is walking back those patterns with what I call the CAST method. So a 3 or a 4-step system on how you can actually slow the response, stop it, and then shift it. Because what I found happens is people just want to be positive, right?
Yeah.
Oh, just be positive, just be positive. But if you're frustrated or you're in this scarcity response, one, you probably don't even identify that you're in it until much later down the line. Like me, I didn't notice it until I was like banging on keys, like the keyboard, and I was banging on the keys on my phone and like just trying to force something to happen. So we really got to acknowledge that these responses are happening, and it's like a child. Do you have children, right?
I just talking about your daughters. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. How old are your daughters?
16, 20, and 21.
Amazing. Okay.
I kind of have to think about it.
you have a range of varying ages, and they're not little anymore. But if you were to remember back to when they were little, and I don't have any kids yet, but I've seen kids, and I have lots of nieces and a few nephews, one great nephew, actually, that when a child is having a tantrum, can you reason with them?
And I usually just walk away.
Yeah, right? Because you can't reason with them. You can't use logic. They're not hearing you. That's what's happening within us, is we have this, a baby inside or a toddler inside, however old your inner child is, that is having a reaction, is having a tantrum in these moments. And then we're just supposed to all of a sudden be positive when we're scared, when, we're frustrated, when we're angry. Most people can't shift their emotional vibration or their emotional quotient from being angry to joyous very quickly. And what happens is when we try, we actually push all of that stuff down. Now, this leads to phase 3, which is abundance on autopilot. Because what's happening when we are, pushing down all of this stuff is it becomes the average or the majority that we are creating from. And our frequency, that energy that we're all about, speaks before you ever say a word. You've met someone in your life where you're like, I cannot get away from you fast enough. You can't sell me anything. I'm not buying anything. I don't like you. It feels gross. Like, they have a hidden agenda, even though they may not be speaking those words. All the words that come out of their mouth sound great, but you can just feel that they just want to get you or whatever it is. And
I've had that a lot recently, I have to say. I was just talking about it the other day, actually, like Facebook messages. People sending me messages, and it's always the same kind of people trying to sell me something. It's usually actually cryptocurrency, but it's like their conversation is completely one-sided. It's like, oh, how are you? Pretend to get to know you. And then they just slip into, would you like to take a look at this? And when you say no, thank you, they're like, well, why? And they send you more things and more screenshots, and you just can't get away. I'm like, oh my goodness, leave me alone.
Yeah. And I bet you, Tara, that the instant that they popped into your message, you knew. You knew
every time I get a new message from somebody, and I'm thinking, I don't want to open it just in case it's somebody trying to sell me Bitcoin again.
Right. But we can feel into people, and you're spiritual. You're all about the law of attraction, right? We can feel one another. So if you feel into somebody's message and feel into them, you can feel whether they're coming from a genuine place or what's going on. I actually learned this skill through horses. I used to race horses growing up.
Nice.
Chariots. Yeah, totally different. But horses, it's not that they necessarily smell fear, but what happens is horses have giant guts because they're obviously big animals.
Yeah.
And we have receptor sites, just like horses, in our guts. So what we're doing is our gut is figuring out whether the energy of the situation or that individual matches what they're portraying. So with horses, they're going to have this big response because they have a big gut, so they can feel you. If you walk up to them and you're trying to actually hide something, they know, and that's when they're uncomfortable. And we as humans, we have this innate ability to do the same. We've just lost our ability to do it, or we haven't practiced that enough.
Yeah.
So you begin practicing that. But what happens with money is we store all of this stuff, all of our, trauma with money, all of our regret with money, all the pain, and all of these things that has been happening, frustration and fear. We try and just be positive about all of it. But all of that rest of that stuff is stuck like gunk to the sides of a blender when you're making a smoothie.
Yeah,
if you forgot
definitely
to wash it, you know how gross that would taste after a couple of days. That's what's happening with us. So the majority of our frequency is what is doing the attraction. It's not the affirmation in the morning where you're like, woohoo, I'm a millionaire, or I'm a money mind. Whatever it is, right? That helps for a couple of seconds, but then you go back into the daily minutia of your life of, I go to the office at this time. And why do you go to the office at that time? Because somebody told me I had to go to that office. And if I don't do this, this, and this, then I'm not doing enough to earn money. Okay. Yeah. All of these things are impacting your ability to attract more money to you. So we have to figure out how your life, the way that you live it, the emotions that you're in every single day, how to shift that to be the direct energies that you want to create. Because we always say, when I get there, when I have $1 million in my bank account or whatever it is your goal is,
then I'll be happy.
Joy. Then I'll be happy. I'll feel bliss. All of these things. We need to bring all of those things into your life now so that you become magnetic and everything is happening on autopilot.
Yeah, totally. I with my clients, I do a deep release for limiting belief meditation. And it's the same kind of thing. You have to move that energy and get it out of the way and shift it, because it gets stuck, and it gets, like you say, in the blender, it gets stuck around the sides and it sticks to your cells. So if you don't shift that energy, when your cells reproduce, they're taking the exact same energy with them each and every time. So it's really difficult to get away from it.
Yeah.
But you have to release that first, so your cells are cleaner, and like washing the blender, you've got to get rid of the old stuff to get the new stuff coming in. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And you know what's so interesting is that we as a society, we're afraid to feel it. We're afraid that we'll get stuck in the emotion of it. We're afraid that we're going to attract something bad because we're feeling it. And I resonate with that because I've been there before. I don't have time to feel it, or I just have to be positive. There was this amount of pressure to be perfect all the time, especially for women. I think we've got Alison Armstrong talks about how we have the perfect woman in our mind, and we'll never, ever measure up. And she doesn't exist, by the way. So, I mean, if somebody that's listening to this is feeling that pressure of, I just have to be positive and happy all the time, even though, I'm frustrated or whatever, I want you to imagine there's a bubble around you, so that in that moment, when you're in that bubble, you can feel whatever you want without repercussion, and then allow yourself to feel it. Because once we get into the practice of actually feeling it and allowing it to move through our body and out instead of holding on to it, you realize that you can get through the process faster and faster with that practice.
People don't like, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, people don't like to let them out, but it's like, if you didn't go to the toilet for a week and you kept it in you, your body wouldn't be very happy and you'd be very unhealthy. And it's the same thing with your emotions. They're just stuff that you have to release and get rid of.
Yes, absolutely. And what you were saying about the cells is so beautiful. You're putting that into like the blueprint of your cell, and then it replicates over and over again. Now let's think about this from the energy that you're putting into the activities that you're doing. So for me, I was telling you, I was banging on that keyboard, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was down the long line of scarcity trail, or, scarcity mindset. I would go to log into my bank account. I wouldn't even log into my bank account, Tara. I would have this response. I would feel this fear, and then I would begin to panic. And then I'd start to be in like massive action. If I just take massive action, one coach told me that one day, massive action, and you can move through anything.
Do more.
You got to hustle, team, no days off. And I was that person. So, I would start this massive action train. And that's when I noticed that I was banging on the keyboards eventually after when I was becoming mindful. But what I've realized and what I teach my students is that every action that you are taking, you're seeding with an energy, with an intention. Now, if that action that is coming with the intention or coming from the place of fear, guess what you're telling the universe you want more of? More things to fear, more things to feel scarce about, you know, more things to feel lack about or limited about. And you don't need that. That's not what you want. The reason why I was taking massive action was to feel better. So I was trying to avoid all of those feelings, but yet I was just recreating them in my life over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's why that, you know, sometimes the more you do, the less you receive.
Absolutely. I have a free webinar, and in my webinar, I actually talk about that, how you push things away. It's like the analogy that I use is if you're ever stuck in the mud with a vehicle, you know, you just hit the gas and it feels like things are happening and mud is flinging and you're doing things like the wheels are spinning really fast and you might even come up onto this crest. And then as soon as you let off the gas, you've created a bigger hole for yourself because it's a strategy, sure. And it's not the most effective strategy. When you start looking at the way that you think about the world, your perceptions, that wall that you've created, and you start shifting them, and then you bring in that energy piece, that's like giving yourself traction underneath the wheels and a tow rope and a big truck to come pull you out. You don't have to be stuck there.
No, it's the same with quicksand, isn't it? The more you panic and struggle, the deeper you sink inside.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
And then, you know, and it's not a matter of sitting back and doing nothing. There has to be a balance. But like you say, I mean, if your energy is in the right place and it's coming from an abundance mindset or an energy of flow and love, doing less is still more productive. Each and every time.
Absolutely. And it's about asking that question of, why do you do what you do? You know, for me, I was very like methodical. I was trained, you know, by wonderful men in business, and they're men, so they operate a little bit differently than women. And I was told, be the first one in the office, the last to leave, and, you know, hustle, team, no days off, all of those things that we were just talking about. And I was there. When I started this journey, I was going through adrenal fatigue and I felt like a robot. And I was going through this whole awakening in my life of who am I and why do I do the things that I do? But I realized that I was, you know, rushing to the office for 9 a.m. It doesn't sound like that early in comparison to this morning, but, you know, I was rushing to be there at a certain time. But why? Because somebody told me I had to. Somebody told me that I had to have X number of appointments to be successful every single day. Is that true? Or is that a belief that I've picked up and I have carried with me that actually limits me into living a life I don't want to live? And that's the thing, is that the way that we perceive our day and what has to be done and how it has to be, you know, I got to work first and then play. I can't take a break during the day. There's all of these things that we have attached to or that we believe that are only true because you believe them to be true, or somebody told you and you haven't decided to look at another perspective or change your own mind on it. So a lot of times when people try and do less, they have this response within them where they're like, I can't do that. And then they start to panic. And I was there. And all of that is going to cut you off too. But it's about that conversation with yourself. Like, why can't I take a break? Because I'm not deserving. Well, that's kind of silly. I'm not deserving of a break. Everybody deserves a break every once in a while. And it's that changing of that mind. For me, I really had to lean into the fact that when I was in flow, when I was like in that mindset and I was rejuvenated and I felt good, I could outwork anybody. Give me a couple hours and I'll do more than most people can do in a couple of weeks. I know that about myself. And I think most people are like that when they're in that flow state. They just are getting so many things off of their list, but we try and force that flow state instead of allowing that flow state. So I built my life around things that get me into that flow state: play, sleep, I paint, I read, romance novels because that brings me joy. I love to watch The Bachelor because I love people falling in love. That's joyous to me. But most people haven't asked themselves, what brings me joy? What activities do I like? What do I even like in my business? If you're an entrepreneur, what do I like to do? And what doesn't feel good? And it's not that you can just toss away everything that doesn't feel good, because maybe you don't have enough money to have an assistant or something like that.
It's true.
But can you start to go from feeling gross about it to feeling neutral, to feeling a little bit better, to a little bit better? And doing that raises your frequency as well. You don't have this like hatred for doing this one task. Now you've eased off that feeling and brought a new feeling in, and you've curated your life. You're doing things with the intention, or behind it is the intention of why you're doing it, for more joy, for love, because it's things that you like to do. All of these reasons, instead of just doing things because somebody else said you had to.
I mean, in my business, I love the tech side of stuff. I don't know what it is. It's just like, it fascinates me. And I'm like a dog with a bone. I will not give up until I've fixed it and I've sorted it. And I started using, it must be about a month ago now, I started using something called Dubsado. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's great for like having your systems in place. You can have your contracts on there, your invoices and all this different stuff. And I started to use it. And it was like, I got there and I was just like overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm like, it's too complicated. So I left it. I went away and then I went back. I was like, right, Tara, you have to sort this out because you know what you're doing. You're good at this kind of stuff. Yeah. So I got there and I went through it all. And like afterwards, when I'd done it all, and it shifted my energy completely. You know, where I went in with oh my God, this is going to be so hard. Right. Shifting it to, okay, well, actually, I like this kind of stuff. So let's have a look. And then, you know, shifting it a little bit more to, well, I got that bit right, so I can get this bit right as well. And then actually really enjoying it by the end of it and and doing everything, getting everything in place and like celebrating that I did that. Something that's obviously not my industry, but you know, I could do that. And it was great. It's such a great feeling to be able to accomplish things like that. But with people, like you're saying, you know, working so many hours all the time, it's a great, you know, a lot of people say things like, you know, if you're not working, you're leaving money on the table and things like that. So they're obsessed with, oh, well, I can't take time off. I can't take an hour off in the afternoon to go for a walk or get a massage or go for lunch, or because they're scared that when they come back, everything will have collapsed. It will have all fallen apart because they weren't there literally watching over it with a hawk eye. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's this pattern of doing that for a long period of time that gets us stuck and we haven't even thought about it, you know. So I would ask some questions around that for somebody that's stuck in that. Why can't you take a break? Well, because I'm leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that absolutely true? And I love this, I built this concept because I love this question. Is it absolutely true? So an absolute is where everyone in the world falls under the same umbrella. Is it absolutely true that anybody that takes a break leaves money on the table, that they're like losing money because they take time for themselves? Well, no. That must not be an absolute, because there's lots of people who go on vacation and you see like these bloggers or Instagram influencers that all that they do is vacation. And he's like, my husband tells me all the time about this one guy. I can't even remember what his name is. I think Whistling Diesel or something. He basically buys these trucks and then wrecks them. And he makes $1 million a year. He's just having fun, just enjoying things. He buys these trucks and he wrecks them. And all of these people watch his videos and he gets paid from that. So is it an absolute that you have to be working 24/7 to make good money? No. Okay. What else is possible? Because that is one possibility. I work all the time and I make money. If I don't work, then I'm leaving money on the table. But there's a billion possibilities that exist outside of that one linear thought pattern. So we need to back it up and really start to see how we think about things. And that process, when you're really stuck and I have to do all the time, you got to start to ease off of it. Because if you're like, I'm not doing anything anymore, I'm going to meditate, money will come to me. Your nervous system is going to go into fight or flight, panic mode very, very quickly. And that's actually what is happening when people try and take a break or they try and go for a walk. Their system goes into this fight, flight, freeze mode. And then all the cortisol is pumping, and it's bad for your body, but also your brain is designed to keep you safe. Is like, there's a tiger chasing you. There's a tiger chasing you. Run, run, run. And now this becomes your response. But there is no tiger. So we have to calm the system first. And the way that I do that, and I teach my students, is to take a breath and put your hands over your heart and ask, baby, what's wrong? To that little inner child that is having a panic attack, baby, what's wrong? I'm scared that I won't make money, that I'm leaving money on the table. And even just that acknowledgement of those feelings, acknowledgement of that child self that lives within, that has been hurt by the things that we have done to it, not taking care of ourselves, all of these things. Pay attention to it, acknowledge it, allow that feeling to really move through you. And then you can start repatterning it, just the way we were talking about. Is it an absolute truth? Is there another possibility that exists instead of this one? And for me, I started with half days. I never took any days off. I started with like a half a day on Sunday because this was hard for me. And in my mind, when I would get into it, I would calm my system because I knew naturally how to do this. Maybe lifetimes or, past lives of working with energy. And this is definitely my mission, is to teach people how to live an abundant life. And so understanding this and then really jumping into the questions that were in my head. Well, if I don't work, it means this. Like, it means that I'm not there for my clients. That means I'm not there for the agents that I train within my brokerage. It means I'm a bad person. It means all of these things would come up, and I would sit with it and look at it and be like, that's stupid. I can take a half a day off. I can take a whole day off. Is it reasonable that I answer my phone or get back to somebody within 3 minutes? Is it reasonable that I take 24 hours, or that I can set a boundary that on Sundays I don't work? What would be an expectation? What expectation would I hold for others if they had a similar position, or if they were doing X, Y, and Z? And the funny thing is, we're so compassionate and so understanding when it comes to the rest of the world. But when it comes to us, we have to be perfect. So it's really fostering that compassion for yourself, and that understanding for yourself, and creating a new standard for yourself that isn't cutting you off at the knees and making you feel bad day in and day out.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody contacts me and it's a weekend and I'm busy, then I reply on Monday.
Yeah.
And if that's leaving money on the table, then that client wasn't meant to work with me, because I attract certain clients, and if it's the right time for them, that money will still be on the table on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no reason why they're going to just go, well, she didn't answer me on Saturday at midnight, I'm going to take my money back then. I'm not doing it. People are reasonable. Of course they are. They know it's the weekend, for example, or if you're on holiday or whatever you are, people are not going to expect you to be sat glued to your phone or your laptop. No. You're allowed to give yourself some respect and some dignity and some time to do things that you enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important that we start thinking like this and questioning this stuff, because I've had the exact same thing. Somebody has messaged me on a Saturday or whatever. And it's not that you can't. If you feel you want to answer them because you're excited, then go with the feeling and do it. And I've done that before, where I've messaged somebody back at an odd time or on the weekend, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't expect you to message me until Monday.
Exactly.
Because they're reasonable people, and you want to work with reasonable people, not people who are demanding, and sucking the soul out of you. You want people to respect your boundaries. That's the people you want to work with, not those who are just taking from you all the time. So,
draining your energy.
You're not leaving anything on the table. You're actually creating your life and calling in the real clients that you want instead of the ones that you don't.
Yeah, definitely. So, if my audience want to get in touch with you, JodieLynn, how can they find you on the big old web?
Instagram is a great place. I have tons of content on Instagram, and it's just JodieLynn Craven, JodieLynn, and then Craven, just like it sounds. And I have a website, JodieLynnCraven.com. Pretty easy. If you go onto my Instagram and you follow me, in my links in my bio, there is a free training that kind of goes through the Fluid Money Blueprint. And I go through the 3 things that entrepreneurs, 3 shifts in the mindset or 3 mistakes entrepreneurs are making with attracting money, and how to shift that mindset. So there's a freebie in there for you too. So those kind of 2 places that will help you see all of the things that I offer, and just be in the container. When you're around more people who are living a life that you want to, it naturally opens up your ability, your perception to do the same when you're watching people stand in their power and do things they love. And this happens to be one of the things I love to do.
Good. I will definitely put the links in the show notes as well. So if anybody didn't manage to write that down, don't bother rewinding or replaying. You'll find them underneath.
Amazing.
Definitely. Any lasting words of wisdom before we leave JodieLynn for my wonderful audience?
Oh, let me feel into this. The world is changing, and we're seeing the world change. In the last 2 years have had its own challenges for every single person in this world, everywhere in the planet. And money is beginning to change too. And if I could make a wish for the world, it would be to release this attachment from money meaning something about you, money making you worthy. Because as I said in the very beginning, it's, our money, the currency that we have in our world today, is not backed by anything except for a government's promise. And your energy, it represents man energy. And the more that you stay in joy and bliss, the more you attract things like joy and bliss, and money as a result of you living the life that you were put here to live. You weren't meant to live in poverty or in lack or in limit and scarcity. You were always divinely guided and divinely taken care of. And that is my wish for the world, is that they begin to see that and begin to live the life that they were put here to live, and abundance will come as a result of that.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, JodieLynn.
Thank you.
I hope you have a great rest of your day. I know it's really early there, but thank you again for getting up and joining us.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm going to watch the sunrise.
Good. Go for you. There's a benefit there, isn't there?
Absolutely. Always a benefit. I love it. Thank you so much for your time today and having me on your show. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. I'll be back next week bringing more meditation, mindset, and motivation for your happy and successful life. To find out more about our community, go to tarachatzakis.com/happy, inspired, motivated.